Oh, hello there. I'm wearing a shirt and tie and making my British accent even stronger because that probably means you're more likely to back me. On your internet travel since 2014, you may have come across a little thing called Gamergate. Anyway, you're likely to have come across lots of talk about it being a harassment campaign, about it being misogynistic, violent, even terroristic. There have even been comparisons to ISIS. If you get your information from the mainstream news, this will have been virtually unanimous. However, people who were involved in Gamergate have a very different point of view on the whole matter. To them, this was an essential social movement, essentially, about ethics in games journalism and against censorship of games. And it became something even more wide-ranging, which is why Gamergate keeps getting mentioned in all kinds of articles that have nothing to do with Gamergate. So how did a movement that is ostensibly about ethics and censorship end up being considered by so many people to be harassment, violence, trolling, and to be supposedly associated with the alt-right and other online hate groups? With Anita Sarkeesian's Tropes vs. Women coming to an end, with Zoe Quinn's book about her supposed experiences, and with Brianna Wu running for office, now seems like the time to try and correct the record. You may or may not know who any of those people are, but they are people who were associated with Gamergate, but with the opposing side. And due to the amount of censorship and bias that we have seen, it is only their side of the story that is really recorded in any way. It is only their side of the story that's going to be considered history in a way. I have some training in history, and this worries me a great deal, in that there is this whole other side to the story. Gamergate may have won in a lot of ways, but all the information about it is largely stored on a much more ephemeral social media than it is in newspapers or television programs and things that may be archived. Even Wikipedia's article on it is grotesquely distorted and largely untrue. Rational Wiki's article on the subject is like peering into the mirror universe. I think it's important that we have other points of view on what happened, on what it meant, on how it happened, on the impact it had, and all the rest. If we allow the historical record to be tainted by only being presented from a single point of view, we're not only doing a disservice to all the people who were involved in Gamergate and who weren't terrorists and harassers and trolls, whatever, but we're doing a disservice to future historians who might want to look back on this event. And I do think it's socially important. It wouldn't be being referenced as much as it is if it didn't have a real impact on the world. I think the echoes of it can be seen in some of these things that people keep trying to attach it to, but only due to the way it was conducted and its success. And I think it's a case in point for a lot of the kind of new splits that we're seeing in social and political arenas that aren't the same as the old lines, and which people don't understand. It's also an opportunity to explain to normies how the internet works. Like what I just did. What the fuck was that? You don't know? It's an opportunity to tell you. So here is what I want to do. I want to present a record of Gamergate from my point of view, from my experiences. I was involved since before it was Gamergate. I was on the IRC chat channels discussing what was going on with Zoe Quinn. Why was I interested? Because I'd backed her and I'd told people to look at Depression Quest and so on. I'd helped fund her after she'd been mugged. And I was worried hearing about what was going on. A, whether it was true, and whether she was okay, and whether this was a witch hunt. And B, whether I'd been backing and supporting someone who was a total shitheel. But here's the thing, what happened with Zoe Quinn wasn't Gamergate. It was an event that sparked investigations that eventually led to Gamergate, but really Gamergate has very little to do with her. And that's something most people don't know already. So I was involved since the start, and what I want to do is I want to place Gamergate in its proper context. I want to place it in a continuum of moral panics. I want to see Gamergate situated alongside Wortham's Seduction of the Innocent, the Satanic Panic, Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, Jack Thompson's crusade against violent video games, the PMRC going after rap music and metal. I see it situated in that continuum of moral panics. I see Gamergate as a reaction to a new one of these moral panics. So I want to situate it there. I want people to understand that this is part of something that happens again and again and again. And Gamergate and Gamergate-like reactions have been defences against these. I think if we set it in that proper context, I think it's easy to understand. I also want to use this as an opportunity to talk about internet culture and how so many people are getting it wrong. How Gamergate, getting as big and as powerful as it was, could have been avoided, the mistakes people made. I want to talk about the incidents that went on. I don't want to do an exhaustive timeline, rather my intention is to cluster together different kinds of things, such as trolling, such as threats, such as the media getting things horribly wrong, and put that into clusters and explain that in a sort of a series of essays around those topics through the book. I want to go at it from my point of view. I want to explain how Gamergate essentially saved my life. That's not hyperbole. The great people that I met in it, their passion, their desire to see better games, their resistance to what they see as people interfering in their culture and in internet culture. And I want to talk about how Gamergate was exploited, both by people on the right end of the horseshoe and on the left side of the horseshoe. I want to contextualize it and explain it and use it as an opportunity to show people how they're getting it wrong. And I really do think it's important to get this into the record to counter all these lies and misrepresentations that you find in the mainstream media and in the kinds of people that are currently producing material about it, talking about it, writing articles that drop its name into it. I really do think it's important to counter that, to give that alternative point of view. To that end, I'm asking you to help me out. Please fund this project. All I'm really looking for is $1,000 to basically cover my salary for 2 months of research. If we go over that, great, but then I can pay one of the many artists associated with Gamergate to do a good cover, a bit more money, we can get a full professional edit, so we've got the best possible thing out there as an ebook, as a print-on-demand book, so that there is a record of the other point of view, so people can buy one book from one side, one book from another, maybe Brad Glasgow's book as well. He's a journalist who's done some sort of independent, neutral research on Gamergate, has lots of statistics. He's putting a book out as well. If we have that kind of trifecta, one viewpoint, the other viewpoint, and the middle viewpoint, then I think we cover the spread, and we have something that people can look back on in the future or when writing their own articles about this, and can see, or at least have a hope of getting a picture of what was really going on from all points of view. And I think that's worthwhile. I do hope you'll back me.
Grim gave a big yawn and settled down to sleep. And of course, when Grim goes to sleep, all of his friends go to sleep too. The people on the internet were just text on a screen, the collectibles were just cheap plastic tat, and the books were just elaborate sandwiches made of wood and paper. Even Grim himself, once he was asleep, was just an old saggy goth twat, baggy and a bit loose at the seams, and nobody loved him.